Yeah, g'day YouTubers. Tinker O'Toole again here with another video. I was playing around with 0.325 with the three gauges, the 50 thou, the 58 thou and the 63 thou. And what I found out that the 50 thou had the most narrower kerf, which was around 3.7 to 3.8 millimeters in width. But when I jumped to the 58 thou, the width of the tooth was about getting close to about 4.1 millimeters, and the 63 thou was around about 4.2. Not much in it. Then I thought, this is the exact width of the tooth or the kerf that's on Hexa. Hexa has, this is a Hexa chain here from Still. We'll just zoom in there. And it's got a kerf of 4.1 millimeters. So this is your Still Hexa. Let's see if we can zoom. So that's your Still Hexa. That's what it looks like, that angle. And it's got the narrower kerf. We'll just grab the digital vernier. The digital caliper, and we'll just measure that so that you can see it should be about 4.1 millimeters. So that's on 0. Sorry, not right on it. There it is there, 4.18, 4.2. Bit of variation, depends where you measure, what tooth you measure. Look at that one, 408. It's one thing I notice about when you're measuring teeth and that, they're all over the shop. They're 4.11. So that's the Still Hexa. And if we go to the 0.325, we'll just grab this one out. This is a 0.325 chain, and if we measure that, 397, 38, bit of variation even on here too. So look at that, bit of variation. You know, you've got over 0.2 of a millimeter, so none of these chains are actually spot on. 4.22. .404. See, 0.2 of a millimeter almost just on that one. So using the 0.325 in either the 58 thou, we'll just measure that one. When I measured mine, I found out that they were close enough to 4.1 millimeters. Hey, 4.1, 4.23, 4.14, 408. This is the perfect width for Hexa. So, if you've got 0.325, now these chains here are called hurricane chains. And I get them from Jono and Jono in Ballarat. And if you buy 3 of them, you get them for about $22 or something like that there. You buy Hexa, you're talking $55. So less than half the price. Okay. Even if you're to use the 0.325 in the 58 thou and the 63 thou gauge, it's going to cut really good anyway. Now, the next thing to do, if you want to do a Hexa grind, and if you look at my wheel, and there's different ways of doing this, and I've done it in many, many different ways, but the outcome's exactly the same, irrespective of which way you do it. We'll just zoom in there. If you look at that wheel, you can see that it's dressed with an angle on it. It's actually a 30-degree angle. Let's get the camera spot on. Okay, so there it is there. So the angle that you see here, this angle here, is 30 degrees. Now, all you have to do is tilt this head to 65 degrees, because Hexa is 65 degree angle or 25 degree angle on a steel USG grinder. The only difference between a steel USG grinder and an Oregon type grinder, when we're talking about tilting the head, is the reference point. On a steel USG grinder, they use 0 degrees as reference point, and on Oregon, they use 90 degrees as reference point. And they tilt different ways. The USG grinder tilts to the left, the Oregon tilts to the right. So if you're using an Oregon grinder, you use 65, I'm using 65 degrees on the back here, 65 degrees. Or if you go to the back knob there, put it on 65 degrees there, and that will be the correct angle, provided that you dress the wheel with a 30 degree angle on it using a dressing block. Now you might ask, how do you know when you're dressing 30 degrees? Well, there's two ways. You can actually make a little template using a protractor made out of plastic, and you can put the plastic template that's 30 degrees, you can sit it in here just so that it gives you a reference point. And then you would hold this at your 30 degree angle, bring your wheel down and slowly dress. Now, if you are contemplating in doing Hexa, I would highly recommend that you go out and buy a Hexa chain. And you use that Hexa chain for your profiling. So in other words, this is a Hexa chain here. And if we set the angle to 65 degrees, which is there, Hexa has a top plate cutting angle of 25 degrees. And then what you want to do is bring your grinding wheel down into the Hexa tooth. We'll just zoom in there so that you can see. You want to bring it down into the Hexa like that. And if you don't exactly have the right profile, it's a little bit out, then you can just slowly use your grinding block and just fiddle around with it a little bit till you get it perfect. And that's why I like to keep a brand new Hexa chain unused, because that's my template for grinding the wheel. Even though that I'm all set up, I've made stainless steel templates. I'll show you the stainless steel template that I made. This is the 30 degree stainless steel template that I made. And the way that I do it is we put this right in here. I'll just turn this right back to where it should be. Put that like that. That's my 30 degree angle. I can put my block on here now. So there's my block. And I can bring my grinding wheel down and I can grind like that. So that's my 30 degree template. It can be made out of plastic. It can be made out of, I only just had stainless steel lying around. That's one way. There are various other ways that I've tried, and I've also I put a 15 degree angle on the side of the wheel, and I put another 15 degree angle on here. Essentially, Hexa is 60 degrees in. Imagine you've got a sideways V, because that's essentially what Hexa is. It's a sideways V. 60 degrees in, 60 degrees out. So you've got a span of 120 degrees. So all you've got to do then is if you've got a span of 120 degrees on your wheel, because If your wheel was flat, that'd be 90 degrees. The side of the wheel and the bottom's 90, and that's why I've got 30 on there. So 30 and 90 is 120. There's me 120 degrees. But you could put 15 degrees bevel on the side of the wheel, so you could actually get the dressing block. If we were to put this at 90 degrees, like that, and you was to hold this at 15 degrees, you could get a 15 degree bevel on here, and then another 15 degree bevel on here, and there's your 120 degrees, and then you would just adjust your head accordingly so that it's set right. So yeah, you can do it many different ways. I did it once before where I put 10 degrees, I took 10 degrees off the side of the wheel, so I had a 10 degree angle here and a 20 degree angle on there. But I found out it's much easier just to put a 30, rather than play around with two angles, I just simply put a 30 degree angle on here and set the head up to 65 degrees. Like that. And that does a pretty good hexa grind. And as I said, if you've got a hexa chain, and you put it in here and you set it all up, and you use that brand new hexa chain for your template, and you can do a final dress on it so that it's almost perfect. And that's probably the cheapest way to get the hexa using 0.325, because it has the narrower kerf and it'll cost you half the price. So that's it. So the only other thing I'd like to say is, yeah, look, I've got a USG grinder, and I've got the USG grinding wheel, so it's all easy, but this is mainly for people that don't have a USG grinder. So what I've done here in the red, I'll just grab a pen. This is essentially the tooth, or the cutter. So the red section is the cutter. The black section is the grinding wheel. So if we were to hold the block, the dressing block at 90 degrees, horizontal like that, with the wheel, with these edges here, that's 90 degrees, and that's why we put that extra 30 degrees on it. So we get 120 degrees here, and we make sure we get 120 degrees there. So you've got to dress the bottom as well. What's a little bit tricky is when you dress the 30 degrees is to get this part, the length, the width that you dress. That's why I said that it's much better if you have a hexa as a template and you can play around and fiddle and get it right. It's probably about 3 millimeters here, and it's probably about 2 millimeters going that way. Even if you use the grinding wheel, it is still very difficult. You need this to be perfectly dead flat if you're ever going to put a file on the bottom, because if you look at a hexa, the hexa is dead flat on the bottom. So it completes the, let's say 3 sides of an octagon, coming down 60 degrees, 60 degrees, 60 degrees, and then 60 degrees back up. So in this case here, yes, you've got your 60 degrees back up, which is your wheel. So essentially that's how you do it. It's pretty simple. As I said, you can have a variation. The variation would be quite simply what the variation is, and I'll just see whether we can do that, is that if your wheel, say your normal grinding wheel comes down on an angle like that, what you do is that you shave off 15 degrees off it that way. So you've got one angle here and you've got 2 angles there. So you can have 15 degrees here and 15 degrees there. That makes up your 120 degrees. You've got to make your 120 degrees up. You can even, and I've done it before, if that was our wheel down, I've had 10 degrees and 20 degrees like that. So 10, 20 and 90, 120. You just got to make your 120 degrees up. Which way you do it, that's up to you. But I find it much easier doing it this way. If this is our wheel coming down like that, there's your 90 degrees. So now if you were to dress the wheel flat, it'd be 90. So I find out that it's better to put a 30-degree angle coming down about 3 millimeters, then dressing it flat on the bottom like that. There's your 120 degrees. Simple. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.